Good morning, greetings, guten Tag, Dalafalava, bonjour, bonjour. This is Dr. Snow Brown, preaching, pastoring, ministering to you all, to the masses, especially to the snow shepherds that are part of my snow game club flock congregation. Inside number 2 CKCTV YouTube channel, Crystal Kingdom Church TV Limited. Today I promised you all that a serious matter would be put before you all, and that matter was regarding the unraveling of the mystery, the great big mystery that's great, the biggest demon of all, and that was the rapist, the 2 police officers that were on duty on the 24th of June 2003. That's correct. Well, I have unraveled the mystery of the color red. Throughout my ministry, especially in the last 3, 4, 5, 3, since 2018, and even inside my YouTube channel, and even on the social media platform, via my Facebook, but more so in YouTube channels, I have been seeing the color red. They refer to, in this country, te whero. Anyway, beside the point, I am going to declare I'm a victim. I am a victim of a serious rape crime that took place, a secret crime, took place on the 24th of June 2003 during a lockup at the Wellington Watch House. That's correct. So I do remember vaguely, and I feel it more so in my spirit, and the guardian angel is trying to remind me about it. And it was only through seeing the color red and also praying the prayers that I've been praying that I received more revelations through guardian angels and Archangel Roran. Remember, as a Christian, but more so as a pastor, you will have the angel's assistance to minister to me, to minister to the ordained. Now, under the circumstances, I was naturally ordained. That's correct. The majority of the Treviranus family, that is a noble priesthood, a German noble priesthood family, majority of them would have naturally had the abilities, would have received the clergyman's gifts and discernments and talents via their DNA. It's been passed down. That's correct. So that's exactly what happened to me. So the gift has been passed down in this generation, and it has come in this form. I have my own kingdom. That's correct. It's registered as a private company, but it's a ministry, and also a private monarch. Now, I have explained myself. I have made it very clear. I have not lied to any of you, that's correct, about what my status is. That I am a full royal, that's correct. I wouldn't have the Dr. Snow Brown label, but that is a knighthood. It is a godly knighthood. It is a royal emblem, knighthood. It is a knighthood that was a blessing that came through my loins, through my royal loins, through my bloodline, through my family tree, and also through the gods, in terms of through the Treviranus family being a priesthood family. So what happened in this lifetime? These gifts of mine, these special intellectual property of mine that is so valuable that I know is worth 150 billion, has been taken advantage, it has been duplicated, it has been counterfeited, and it has been copied. And actually, it is now confirmed, the people that are behind the harms that I have been getting inside this address and even outside this address, specifically in this region of the country, Wellington region, but also it has those harms have extended to the social media platforms like the YouTube channel and the Facebook. And it has come through via a criminal organization that I have been preaching about. I've never had dealings. I've never spoken to the head of the so-called criminal organization in terms of never. But I have been set up by my own evil rallies who are connected to that particular criminal organization. The red one, with the associate, the white one, my niggas. So I've been a victim since 1996. I guess the more disturbing thing that I have unraveled is that I'm definitely a victim of a serious violent rape crime. And it was done with a purpose in mind, not only short term, but more so long term. It was to control, it was for them, the criminals, but also more so my rallies, my cousin side of their family being sick with incest and erotomania. That's great. And also that criminal organization. It was more for them, but more for my rallies and their evil so-called connection to have the opportunity to assert some sort of, power of control, the authority to assert dominion, to use me and my family like a commodity and a chattel, in the future like a slave. So in other words, my rallies, my cousins side of the family who are straight up mobsters, now that I know, part of the red and the white demons, had pre-planned and premeditated ever since from 1996. And I think that they had planned even after my 21st that they were going to target me, to be used and abused and controlled and dictated to. And they were also going to exploit me, try to convert me to one of their slaves, or to be part of that sex ring criminal organization, to be part of the slave trade, to be part of the sex slave trade as well. So that was the long-term goal of that criminal organization, the red one, that my cousins are the family are part of. That's correct. That I never had anything to do with. So from 1996, my cousin side of the family were just so evil, and the rest of Dad's rallies appear to have orchestrated the very first setup. That's correct. So I was like Red Riding Hood, and of course I wasn't wearing red. In this case, I was Snow Brown Riding Hood. That's correct. Going to university back beginning 1993 to study Bachelor of Arts in Linguistics, and I think German as well, but I later just changed it to linguistics. Anyway, they had set me up. They decided to set me up with a married man whose name is called Dr. Tavi Telipine, or Tavi Telipine. He was actually an associate of that criminal organization. It appears that he was working his way up to the elites, to become part of the elites. So he made an agreement. Your cousin side of the family and the rallies had an agreement, made some kind of deal. And it looks like the Maoris in this country, that there was somebody that was interested in this meek noble here among the Maori so-called indigenous community, Maori community, locally and in general in the Wellington region, that had an interest. One that was sexual, that's correct, where they were going to target me for sex. And of course, it looks like your cousin's family had always been wanting to convert you to a sex slave, to one of their sex slaves. especially via the connection of the police intelligence unit. That's correct. With their assistance and their backing and their support, they were hoping that outcome was going to happen for me, because it appeared that my cousin was already a sex slave for the criminal organization. In fact, her entire family, but more so her, was already a sex slave. So their family are probably already slaves. That's correct. So they've been having sex with the elites. They became part of the elites. So they worked their way up. But along the way, they used this person here. They used this Mick Noble. That's correct. For them to climb the corporate ladder, to reach, to get up to the top, to be part of the elites. So in other words, it's pretty cruel. I know it is so cruel to think that my cousin's side of the family actually used my family in order to protect their own skin and promote their own skin, and also to get recognition for their, disgusting demons in the form of that criminal organization. And of course, then the white niggers in the form of KKK decided that they would exploit the opportunity. That's correct. Use me for experiments. So it has been, in fact, it's been that way throughout the 9 years tenancy here inside this building. I have been subjected to heinous tortures and cruelties and unnecessary disciplinary strategies, discipline reprimands. I've been given the treatment of a slave. That's correct. And even one that is so disturbing on the level of an abused so-called mental health patient, a mental health patient kind of treatment as well, where because they assume that I'm mentally, or not all there, or they think that they've declared you insane via the so-called order of supervision via their lawyer, who's actually an associate, part of the organization. They thought that by applying that trump card, that they could what? They could give you the ill treatment. They could continue on with their arbitrary dictatorships. That's correct. And criminal harmful protocols that they've been applying. What they don't realize, your cousin, because the setup on the 24th of June 2003, I think the fact that you were drugged by 2 police officers, it's the fact that I get the feeling the color red. I was given 3 nosebleeds, and that was part of the torture and cruelty and the so-called maniacs, the police officers' way of disciplining. But it's like it was an agreement with all of them, as well as the so-called person who ran the organization and your rallies, to teach you a lesson. But the way they taught this Meek Noble a lesson was that they decided to bleed you. That's great. Give you a nosebleed 3 times. So the first time, this is how I know that the 2 police officers that I was raped on the 24th of June 2003. That day I was locked up overnight. The very next morning I woke up, I felt something had happened, something terrible had happened. Because down there, I felt like I had been penetrated. That someone had violently done something to me down there in my lower anatomy, in my private area. Of course, by that morning, I was completely what? I felt like drugged. I'd been completely drugged. I felt like a drugged, victim, being overdosed. Now, that was 2003. I have not been diagnosed yet. In that year, I hadn't been diagnosed with a mental illness yet by ACC. This didn't happen until 2005. That's correct. So the fact that I was raped that way, and then so the 25th and next morning of June 2003, I appeared at the court for a willful trespass charge regarding the Wellington Victoria University, the Wellington Law Faculty's breach of trespass because of my civil rights protesting. That's correct. So I went to court the next day on the 25th. knowing that something had happened. But of course, there's no memory. You couldn't recount the memory because you'd been severely drugged. And I mean, overdosed. That's correct. But I knew that deep down in my gut instinct, and women know it as well. It's a survival instinct. It's a mother instinct. You'll know if something has happened or somebody has done something to you. And that was the feeling that I had on the 25th, the whole day that day. I went to court. I was not a happy chappy. That's correct. Because I knew something. Oh, I said, oh, the bastard. I don't know, but I felt like somebody had done something awful. That's correct. Anyway, by the 26th, this is 2 days later, after the 24th, after being locked overnight. By the 26th of June, 2003, I was in agony and in pain at home. My whole face had swollen up. That's correct. It was like I had an allergic reaction of some sort. And I had pus coming out of my ears. That's correct. And I don't remember doing anything to induce such a, this is the first time this has ever happened to me. This kind of unexplained, allergic reaction or whatever it was. But to me, I knew that the two officers on duty on the 24th of June 2003 had actually tortured, that's correct, had actually given me something to induce this torture on the 26th of June 2003 because I had to be it was an emergency, I had to be administered. That's great, a medication of some sort that the doctor knew very well what to give me. But it was so unnatural, this ear infection that ran away with the cow and the spoon. It was so unnatural, it was deliberate. It was definitely a criminal harmful protocol. It was one that involved, drugging and poisoning, and also mixing of some sort of, doing some sort of concoction that would cause that kind of reaction. But the nose, the ear infection, it took over three weeks to heal. So that's why I say the two officers were definitely part of the police intelligence unit. Now that's been brought to my attention today and even in the last couple of weeks. That's correct. That those two had not only raped me, but there might have been also some elite that were watching, and that involved also my evil rallies were also watching what happened. I being violently raped. And it looks like this is a criminal harmful protocol. This is a common, regular harmful protocols that they normally, that criminal organization would normally apply, especially for married women and half-caste married women, and in general, women that are connected to the criminal organization. This is what they do, and especially if KKK, MMP, that's correct. To teach them a lesson, or to discipline them, or even to intimidate, to threaten the family, to threaten the victim's immediate family, that if they don't do what if they don't apply their dictatorships, and they don't do what they tell them to do, then that's what they will do. Then that's what they will do to all the women. So that would be her mother and her other siblings, other 5 siblings, or 4 women, or basically to all the women in my immediate family, as well as extended family. Now, I wouldn't know that because I didn't grow up in a gang. I don't know what they do. That's correct. But this is what the Holy Spirit and the guardian angel Sabalama and Archangel Ryan are teaching me, are ministering to me. The angels of God, the Holy Spirit is speaking to me in my spirit right now. And what I'm saying is the truth, because I have medical file that clearly shows that the 3 nosebleed, I must have bled when I was raped on the 24th of June 2003. For the KKK and the MMP and even your rallies to premeditate, but to pre-orchestrate the 3 nosebleed to take place as another form of torture on top of the rape crime that happened on the 24th of June 2003. That's correct. So it wasn't enough for them to rape the victim, because the 2 police officers that were in duty, or whichever one of them that did more damage than the other one, decided, we need to cover up this heinous crime that we've just committed. And the way that they went about covering it up, and there was, the sergeant of the police station who was on duty, who was in charge of that station at that time, also allowed it, aided and abetted this heinous crime. That's correct. And every other police officer that were part of that police intelligence unit, that included your rallies, had also covered up, had also decided that they needed to cover this up. That's correct. She will never know. I think, we're going to make sure that she never remembers. We're going to take all precautions and whatever measures to make sure that this victim never remembers what happened to her on the 24th of June 2003 when she was locked overnight. So what were the precautions they took? So the way that they controlled the victim, on the 26th of June, 2 days later, they made sure they gave her an ear infection. They induced an ear infection that was so painful. But you see, the pain that she was feeling was probably all over. That's correct. Now, of course, the pain went up to more so to the face that was swollen, and the ears, the pus coming out of the ears. But there was another pain. So in other words, what they wanted to mislead the victim in thinking was that she was just having, one of those normal allergic reaction. It could happen to anybody. No. That was a form of torture, another form of torture, just to cover up. It's like a diversion or a detour to make her focus on that rather than what happened during the rape crime. That's correct. It is the most sophisticated way of camouflaging. It is the most evil thing that anybody could do. That's correct. How dare that there was the elites and your rallies and everybody else that was part of that crime, that secret crime that took place. And then after that, that's when the police started to kick in with his so-called arbitrary dictatorships, and even your rallies who condoned and also approved that crime that took place. That's when they started to apply their criminal harmful protocols and arbitrary dictatorships and slavery type harmful protocols. That's correct. So from the 26th of June, that's when they gave you the so-called the ear infection that took 3 weeks to heal. And then June, July, August, and then 2 months down the track on the 26th of August 2003, she was at the courts in Wellington dealing with the willful trespass charge that she was locked up overnight for at the courts. And on that day, she remembers taking a hot drink because she was locked in one of the cells with other hooligans, other punks. That's correct. And she remembers taking that. And then all of a sudden, the nosebleed started from the courts. That's correct. That was the first nosebleed. It was so severe that it didn't stop. That's correct. So whatever they gave the victim there at the courts, a hot drink, this was another police brutality, but it came from the same police officer that raped the victim there on the 24th of June. So this was now the second torture of the victim with the first nosebleed. That's correct. Now, I don't know why they did that. Maybe they were testing the victim to see if she could remember what happened to her on the 24th of June 2003. Because if they make her bleed that way, and I'm telling you, this nosebleed was so severe that we had to go to the medical center at Stokes Valley. And I remember Dr. Kupenga was the one that tried to stop it. And of course, it didn't stop because we ended up going home unconscious. And then I had to call the emergency, the ambulance to come and take me to the hospital. That's great. So the nosebleed didn't stop. It was that bad. And I'll tell you, this wasn't a normal nosebleed. This was actually torture. It was being induced. The blood was being induced. That's great. It is so cruel to have to sit there at the so-called reception area at the heart hospital emergency. I mean, I'm pretty sure they have footage or a video recording, the blood flow, the blood. That's great. It was like period. It was like, it wasn't normal blood. It was like blood clots were coming out of my nose. That's great. But it didn't stop. So from 6 o'clock onwards till about 9 o'clock at night, that's great, still bleeding. That's not normal. That's torture. That is pure torture. That's great. So that was the second torture. After the incident, after the rape, the lockup on the 24th of June 2003, and then it proceeded on. I think before the nosebleed on 26th of August 2003, you got served a trespass notice by Stuart Mum of Working Income, dated the 18th of August 2003, and we had a verbal altercation on the 15th of August inside Working Income. Now, you didn't need that. And get this. So the first torture was the rape crime on the 24th of June 2003. The second torture was the ear infection, induced ear infection that lasted 3 months to recover on the 26th of June 2003. Then the third torture of the victim was being served a trespass notice from Working Income by Stuart Mum. I think the police that raped the victim, it was part of the police intelligence, would have rung Stuart Mum to tell him, that's correct, I want her to be given a trespass notice that covers all the Wellington 10 branches of Working Income. And I got a shock. This is the first time that I ever got a trespass notice like that from Working Income without any justification. That's correct. And it covered all branches, 10 branches of Working Income. Now, I don't know what for. I most certainly did not threaten the manager because the video surveillance would clearly show that's correct. Somebody wanted to teach me a lesson but wanted to discipline me on a very harmful level. That's correct. So that was then one. That's right, one torture, 2, 3, and then the fourth torture was the nosebleed on the 26th of August 2003 that I tried to explain. But that wasn't the end of it. Then you got controlled by Stuart Mum for 8 years. There was someone behind Stuart Mum that was dictating to your access to services at the remote client unit. For 8 years, that's great. You got controlled like a slave, like a criminal that you didn't deserve. That's great. And yet the dictatorship appears to have come from the police. That's great. The very person that actually raped you. And also from your rallies and that criminal organization. Why is it necessary? That is so unjustified, unreasonable, but it's stupid. New Zealand, that shouldn't have happened to me. That's correct. I wasn't a member of the organization, nor was I an associate. But here I was being tortured and being controlled and dictated to. Not only by my cousin's evil side of the family, who had that kind of connection that I wouldn't have known about it, but by somebody, a stranger. I never gave my consent to rape me. That's correct. That I don't even know the fucking police officers. That's correct. And I don't even know that there were people that were actually watching the elites. That's correct. And I didn't even know until now that the police officers that actually raped me on the 24th of June 2003 were connected also to the criminals inside this building. And connected to all those people that gave me all those decisions. Take, for instance, our Park Cozy Club. I was being controlled, and I'm thinking, who is this person that's stalking me on my cell phone? Why does he need to do that? And I find out now that it is actually the police officer that raped you on the 24th of June, 2003. He has been dictating. And I find out again as well, the very person that your cousin and her side of the family and the rest of your rallies had set up with back in 1996, I told Dr. Tabi Telebine or Mr. Brick, also knew the police officers. He also knew the police officers that had me raped, that actually broke my hymen. And now I know why the color red is so significant. So now they think the criminal organization with that police officer, the maniacs, and the rest of my rallies, and so-called my cousin's side of the family, and even the elites, think that I'm now the property of the organization? That I deserve all those whole rubbish? That's correct. That I'm now the slave, the sex slave, and yet you're not the one who's a whore. You've never been a whore. It's your cousin that appears to have been the whore all these years, and also one of your aunts in Timarua, Atalana Trevorados, that has been the whore, the two main whores, that's correct, that appears to have been satisfying the elites, as well as that unit, the police intelligence unit, and also possibly the military men, the armed forces of New Zealand, local. Well, because you see, Atalana Trevorados, who's married to my dad's brother, Heinous Trevorados, used to work as a store person in the Trentham Camp Army. That's correct. Now, of course, he got respected. He showed me his little plaque. That's correct. When he retired and left his job, he got a plaque. So he was given recognition, you see. So he would know a lot of armed forces men, military men, locally, and possibly all over the planet, especially America. But when his wife doesn't wear any knickers, well, that can only mean one thing, that she's a whore. And so is my cousin, whom they, by the way, favor, and probably would have endorsed by the elites. That's correct. Now, what was the other torture? Well, I think before I got the trespass notice from Work and Income, they covered all 10 branches of Work and Income here in the Wellington region on the 18th, but I received it on the 27th of August 2003, but it was dated the 18th of August 2003. The university gave you a trespass notice, that's correct, for 2 years, unreasonably. It wasn't necessary. But of course, it looks like your cousin side of the family applied their arbitrary dictatorships from that criminal organization to discipline you at the university, to ill-treat you at the university, to have you controlled like a slave. That's correct. That is so disgusting, but nasty. It sure is. So when was the second nosebleed? When did that happen? On the 15th of November, 2006, until the 30th of November, 2006. That second nosebleed almost took me out. That's correct. I almost took my life. That's correct. How do I know? Well, unconscious. I ended up at the hospital, spending overnight. That's correct. They had an IV on me. And I knew right away something wasn't right. That nosebleed that was so long. That's correct. you were being tortured. You were actually being tortured. But I don't know why. It's cruel. That's correct. I don't remember doing anything to anybody. I was just minding my own business. I think they came into my address, the back cottage, there at the property in Whiteman's Valley. And were entering. The police officer that looks like the ones that raped you had entered. That's correct. And it decided to torture you because they downloaded. I think they stole a copy of your play, or they had downloaded a lot of stuff off my computer. But it looks like your mother and the rest of your family allowed them to enter. That's correct. Your mother, of course, is going to deny. But, the Holy Spirit doesn't lie. That's correct. So it looks like your mother was being dictated. Oh, let's just say, in this case, your mother and your poor daddy and your immediate family were being dictated to by your cousin side of the family, especially that criminal organization. And especially the white niggers, the English. They are nasty, all right? So they definitely were not happy about something and decided to teach you a lesson. I'm not sure why the English have got this mentality, and even the Maoris in this country think they got a right to teach you a lesson. Or because some asshole decided to rape you. What Davita Bennett couldn't do. I guess they weren't satisfied with what Davita Bennett did back in 1996. They weren't satisfied with that. That's correct. So, Lord and behold, when you got raped on the 20, when they finally, were able to gain access to you unlawfully, but what a way to do it. During a lockup. That's correct. They said, well, I think it's about time she grow up. That's great. Let's teach her a lesson. Because after all, she's always protesting. Not always. She's always speaking out. That's correct. She's always saying whatever she wants to say. That's correct. Anyway, and Lord, I guess they got a surprise, didn't they? Didn't they expect you to bleed like that? That's correct. To be a virgin? How embarrassing. I know, it's so embarrassing. It is so embarrassing. That's great, because they probably thought you were a whore. That's right. And how embarrassing is that now at this age? I'm 50. And the son of a bitch still thinks that he's got a right to come in whenever he wants to? I don't even know him. That's correct. These son of a bitches shouldn't even be inside this building, let alone dictate to me and try to discipline my life, control my life. That's correct. And deny my decision making. Your rallies are so evil. Have they used other qualified professionals, especially the whore in Timarua, to dictate to your privileges and try to control my life? And it's no wonder they stalk you everywhere. This was another way that they could try to control the victim, to make sure that they weren't going to end up in jailbird for what they did. And for all the tortures and crimes, secret crimes they committed in the last 27 years. That's correct. Because if you remembered, then they would go to jailbird. That's correct. But I mean, that's such a cowardice thing. Why commit the crime if you can't do the time? That's correct. You know what? Fuck that. That's correct. I couldn't care less. The elites have got rights. No, they don't have any rights to use criminals like these ones inside the building to dictate to me, to harm me, to come inside my flat. I've got a right to my own privacy. And I've got a right as well to my freedom of expression and freedom of speech. But I don't need your people to discipline me, let alone tell me how to run my affairs, how to conduct my affairs, and how to speak as well, and what to say. I don't go. My goodness. And when was the third nosebleed? Well, it happened on the 11th of August 2013. This was like a couple of weeks after I'd published my play in June of 2013. That's correct. And that nosebleed was induced without a doubt. Well, it happened here inside this address. It happened right here. That's correct. The third time. Third time lucky? Or was it third time bad luck? That's correct. Bad news. And it lasted. And I had to ring the ambulance 3 times. That's correct. Because the Lower Hutt Hospital couldn't stop. I don't know whether they were experimenting. I actually think they were experimenting. Trying every procedure they could come up to see if they could stop the so-called, the bleeding. Cauterize, and you had the popsicle kind of stick up there. That's correct. And then you had something else, and it gave you, high blood pressure to try to lower your blood pressure. And I've never had blood pressure. And it looks like somebody decided to play around with your so-called bodily functions and chemicals that are happening inside my body all of a sudden. Suddenly I became a guinea pig overnight. That's great. Again, third time. So what happened? The Lower Hutt Hospital emergency were so useless. But I think they deliberately were useless because they wanted you to go to the ear, throat, and nose specialist in Wellington. And that appointment was booked on the 16th of August. That's great. That's 6 days. On the 6th day, 2013. And the Malaysian doctor, because I clearly remember, he was we were about to carry out the procedure, and then there was a earthquake going on, 6.5 or whatever. That's correct. And I remember he said to me, oh my gosh, we have a nerve. I need to kill this nerve. Actually, the Hutt Hospital emergency ward they could have actually done this. They could have actually carried out this procedure. Yeah. But I think they deliberately torture you. Deliberately. That's correct. In other words, the first time, if they assessed you the first time, they would have been able to stop it there and then on the first day. But you see, when you've got criminals like these, KKK and MNB, that are likely to take advantage of you, they're going to want to, to see if you can last 6 days. They want to see, and if there's a crazy maniac elite like Anthony Shaw that is witnessing and knowing all that's going on, that's great. I'm sure he would want the victim to be tortured, stretch it out. That's great. We want to make sure that she's taught a lesson, because I'm not satisfied. 1 day, bleed, 2 days, 3 days. No, it's not good enough. I need it to make it 6. So if we bleed her 6 for 6 days, then we're satisfied she's been taught a lesson. We're satisfied for now that she's been taught a lesson. But I'm pretty sure that we're going to teach her again a lesson. Another lesson on top of another lesson and another lesson. Now, do you get what I'm trying to communicate to you? My so-called Snow Gang Club flock? That I'm living in a toxic address? That the government of New Zealand and the ministers deliberately put these people here with a purpose in mind? To have me taught a lesson? And then again, recently, again, it was August the 11th. That's correct. You notice the date? August 11, 2013? When the third nosebleed started. Now, August 11, 2023, I got run down by a forklift operator who appears to have been an associate of the police intelligence unit and these criminals inside this building. Now, is that a coincidence? Or is that a lie? Paramedics can't lie, and the camera can't lie. That's correct. So you all take care, because that is the mystery of the 3 nosebleed, was that I was raped. That's how bad I was raped. Now, I don't know how many of them did, gave it to me on the 24th of June, but I'm presuming that there must be a whole gang full of them out there. To have all these people to apply an evil son of a bitch, a police officer, I'm going to say one of them, to apply his, arbitrary dictatorships and even your rallies to arbitrary dictatorships so that they could control you and make sure that you didn't remember what happened to you. Otherwise, they'd all go to jailbird by the truckload. But today, as I've been saying throughout my preaching, no, they deserve the death penalty. It is their time to go. Because it's not going to continue on like this. When I come to court, I come with the restraining order, but I want to leave your country. Your fucking loser country. Stupid country. Maniac country. Sick country. So it's no wonder they've been hacking into your digital devices. They've been annoying the hell out of you here at this address. They've been stalking me on my digital devices to know about, let's see where she's going. That's correct. We need to keep an eye on her. Your cousin who is sick with incest and her family, they need to go to their graves now. That's correct. And so, Mr. and Mrs. Yoke, Heinous Trevoranus and Atalanta Trevoranus there in Timarua, you two deserve the death penalty as well. It is time for you two, you bunch of whores, and your cousin who's a whore, and the rest of their whore family, to go and kiss the dirt. To dust you shall return. That's correct. It is time for all of you to take responsibility and stop being arrogant. Stop being stupid. That's correct. It's time to grow up and grow some balls as well. Not behind my back, thank you. I ain't your slave. You're dreaming. That's correct. You tell that white nigger, who, by the way, probably owns your asses, all your pussy, that's great, all your assholes, and what you got, and you deserve what you get from them, that's great. But I didn't deserve any of it. Do you get? But you people deserve the death penalty. Gave me all those lying, stupid decisions. They're not lies, what I'm preaching about. But like I said today, now you know how I figured out that I'm a victim of a violent rape. That's correct. They wouldn't be stalking me around and using professional people to diagnose me with some bullshit to apply a criminal organization's harmful protocol, arbitrary dictatorships, so that they could control me even more and keep an eye on what I'm doing and make sure that people deny my privileges. Well, I'm sorry, but something must have happened for all those decisions to take place. That's great. But to think that they would go and deny, so what? So now you're going to try and stop me from leaving this country? Yeah, but why? I ain't your slave, and I ain't your sex slave, and you're not going to get any sex from me. That's correct. Well, I mean, if you guys didn't go about it the right way, and don't forget, I'm a pastor, and all of you are not. You are all evil son of bitches who deserve the bullet to the third eye, to the head. And you are all tails. And you all love to have sex outside the marriage arrangement. So you are all part of a sex ring, including the elites, the people inside this address, the people who live locally, the people that are part of the criminal organizations, the police intelligence unit and your allies. You are all part of the sex ring. That's how sick the people are in this country. Can you imagine that a sexual predator, a serial rapist, a serial pervert, they're the only people that would invade people's private spaces, hack into people's digital devices. But I think it looks like desperation is the one word that sums up what happened to your cousin and the police officers and your rallies. Was that they got so scared, too scared every year of being caught. That's correct. This is what happens to cowards and losers and demons who are on the run, fugitive on the run. They'll try and control the victims, that's correct, and deny their so-called, so to make sure that they don't end up in jailbird. But I mean, you're already a fucking criminal. How more criminal can you not be? That's correct. You already are. So you ought to go to the jailbird. But if you're going to dodge the bullet and try to cover it up, and yet I've been dealt to with your willful trespass charges. That's correct. I've been made to take responsibility. I've even been bullied to take responsibility. But you dare want to dodge the bullet. When it comes to taking responsibility, that's correct. That's evil. That's why all of you deserve the death penalty. And I got no time for any of you. And you don't need to enter my kingdom. Get out. You evil son of a bitches. You evil doers. Your time will come, that's correct, where you shall end up in the lake of fire where you deserve to be. So get out of my kingdom. And you stop your dictating. Whether it be to my Tennessee manager, you got no right to dictate. Your people need to get out of my kingdom and go and create your own YouTube channel. Don't copy it anymore. You ain't a Christian. You don't know my Lord like the way I do. You don't know my Holy Mother either. Get out of my kingdom and get lost. You whoring bunch. The only thing you care about is satisfying. Your sex addiction, get out. People like me don't need to be around people like you. You got no respect. You invaded my fucking privacy. You touched and perverted my body. My sacred body. You people are evil, all right. The Germans have got a right to take you out and discipline you. But the armed forces, you need to show some fucking respect to me. I don't give a fuck what I look like. On the inside, I'm a German. Back out. But I'm a noble. You couldn't fucking survive the atrocities. I'm about to go through a great tribulation to face the biggest losers and biggest demon of all. And some of them are actually my flesh and blood, who are traitors to God, traitors to their own, and traitors to my daddy. You all deserve the death penalty. And I got no respect for any English. Get the fuck out. Take your rubbish out. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen.